Hello. This is a totally impromptu stream that I wasn't planning on doing today, but I have had a bunch of problems recently with my internet service provider not being able to make my internet work at the level I've paid for it at. So I've had to interrupt a lot of streams that I've tried to do, and that sucked. So, I'm just going to try and stream for a little while today and just make sure that my streaming actually works so that when we have a scheduled one next time that we won't constantly be interrupted. So, I am going to treat this as a session where I go through games on my backlog for Indies Under the Knife, which is the series where I review your games and try and give useful feedback to developers who are working on projects. Oh, hey Simon, thanks for popping in. Yeah, I'm gonna just play some of the games from my backlog and chat to whoever comes in and wants to chat, and people can ask me anything about sort of areas I know about. But it's primarily just to test that my streaming works at all, because I do ping tests and I, write to the internet service provider and they're like, yeah, it's fine. And then this week I had local area problems with it, so I'm testing to see if they've fixed that. And what I'm going to do is just play the first game that looks interesting off of my list of games that I'm supposed to be playing and giving feedback on. I'm going to play the first one that I find interesting, and then I will, if we're still here in about half hour, then I will put a poll up for the next game based on the descriptions of a couple of games that I've been sent. But let's take a look at this first. It's called Clean Twin. And where is the very interesting description of the game here? Clean Twin is a casual first-person shooter about Diogenes syndrome, where you blast away grime and garbage to transform dirty, messy spaces into clean and inviting environments. The game's designed to be accessible and family-friendly, aiming to deliver a relaxing and satisfying experience focused on the act of cleaning. Okay, so I haven't played any of these cleaning games like Jet Wash Simulator and stuff like that. I need to look up what Diogenes syndrome is. I think it might be like hoarding but with just dirt. Senile squalor syndrome is a disorder characterized by extreme self-neglect, domestic squalor, social withdrawal, apathy. So named after Diogenes, who was sort of a hermit who lived in a dirty place, I guess. Hi Borodin, hi Gilbert. Very unplanned, unscheduled stream this weekend, but just trying to make sure that my internet is working properly before I schedule any more proper streams, because the last two have been interrupted constantly. Looks like we're doing okay now, because I complained to the service provider. But yeah, going to take a look at Clean Twin. I haven't played a game in this genre. I could see how cleaning things can be sort of an inherently satisfying thing. So I have some hopes for this. And I've got this whole backlog here. I wish there was a way that I could show it without doxing people, but I can't. And maybe if I hide the right things. But how many games are on here at the moment? The Indies Under the Knife games backlog currently has 69 entries, of which I have played. I've done videos on 7 of them, and there are a few that I've played and sort of shortlisted. And I think one of the things I'm going to have to eventually start doing is doing Indies Under the Knife as a stream, and then just cutting up the funniest or insightful bits that come out of it, when someone's game just has something really interesting or goofy about it. Let's check this out. I'm just... Yeah, it's a very trippy title screen. Let's see what the game is like. Yeah, I mean, I'll probably start doing full Indies Under the Knife videos when we get the Patreon up. That's kind of what I've suggested so far. It's a weird series because they get watched less than anything else I do, but it is also the heart of the channel. So that's just YouTube, though. People are more likely to click on stuff when it's solving an obvious problem, whereas if you sort of vaguely promise that someone might learn about game design by watching a review, then it's a much less clear value proposition for people, I think. Yeah, so I'm trying to get a small studio near my house, like just a single room studio, so that I can have things like lights and green screen set up the whole time, because when I first started this channel I did a lot of silly sketches and dress up and stuff, and I would love to be able to do more of that again. Like, you know, do the Indies Under the Knife footage doing a first reaction, and then come back to it and do some more polished talking head stuff and do some silly stuff when it kind of seems like a time to do it. But anything other than just sitting at the computer recording with the webcam at the moment is just not doable at home. Just don't have the space to keep all the lights set up and all of that kind of thing. C to crouch. Pick up. Equip with one. That's a nice way to teach me to shoot, actually. Making the tutorial UI into something you have to shoot. This is a very Roblox-esque kind of tutorial. But it's a good way to teach what they're trying to teach. Okay, exit, stand up, C, jump with space. Very lovely, arcadey, 8-bit jump sound. And we can sprint. Ah, do I need to clean this? Another thing I might be doing soon is I have a client that I work with, and we're currently working on a very sort of narrative focused game, but we might be working on an action game soon, and there's a chance that it will be a Metroidvania. And I can't say anything else about that project really, but I am going to potentially be helping out with someone else's Metroidvania, so I might do a series on here that is just me taking apart the genre as much as I can. So if you're into the Vanias, that might become like a little design excursion that we get into. Okay, this is really cool. This is strange and surreal in a way that I find quite pleasing. It's kind of giving Katamari. Like, the use of low poly to be able to populate an area in such a chaotic way with objects feels very Katamari-esque. Borodin said, do we need these types of tutorials anymore when it comes to basic FPS controls? Yeah, I don't know. I mean, they did say this is supposed to be accessible to everyone, so I guess you don't want to assume that everyone has played an FPS before, because maybe the audience of this is not, you know, hardcore FPS players. But I do get what you mean. Am I supposed to carry some stuff out? So the walls, are they dirty? Can I shoot them with bubbles? I can carry stuff. Do I have to yeet it out of there? What was that? How am I actually cleaning stuff? So it says that I've binned one thing because that thing exploded when I tried to throw it out of the window. Even the button prompts look like a Roblox game. I'm not saying any of that to be derogatory. I just worked in the Roblox space for a year or so, a little while back, and I was sort of very sensitive to how much the interface looks like that. Okay, so if you shoot when you're carrying something, it throws it, I think. And we've had one of the problems with tutorials is you need to be kind of consistent with the level of tutorialization. So if you have a key mechanic like picking something up and throwing it by shooting, which is I think what was just happening to get rid of these objects. Like, why am I throwing it and shooting a bubble at the same time? But it's making my trash can go up. My trash can meter is going up each time I do this. So I think it's what I'm supposed to do. Throw stuff out the window and it explodes. If I don't quite level up, press tab to buy upgrades. Okay. Morswin said, what is this game? This is called Clean Twin. There is, and let me just put the itch link for you actually, 1 second. I have too many things. The itch link for this game is yeah, let's just try shooting the bubbles everywhere. Yeah, so you can clean the poop off of the wall. So it looks like you've got two kind of goals really. One is to get rid of all the trash objects, and the other is to clean the walls and all of this poop texture off of everything. I think the cleaning with the gun is going to feel more satisfying if everything doesn't have the same texture underneath it. Because at the moment it looks like we're just cleaning brown off of beige. And I think if there are pretty things to reveal underneath here, or just something more pleasant, then it's going to feel more rewarding. Because this is a lot of room to clean. Let's see what I've got on the upgrade tab. Projectiles. Okay, so we've got a level up, and then we've got stuff we can choose. I would always think that if you're making a game of this sort, it says 2 points remaining there underneath my logo. I've got 2 points to spend. But I think maybe having this as like you must pick from these 3 choices each time you level up is going to make this feel more casual. Because at the moment, I have to read through all of these to make a decision about what I want, and that's good in RPGs when you're building a character and you want to build a particular type of character. But in an arcade game like this, where the developer said that they want to go for a sort of casual audience, they want anyone to be able to play it, I think limiting the amount of choices each time you level up is probably a good shout. Projectiles. Area of effect of projectiles goes up by 10 pixels. We'll go for one of them. Resilient blob projectiles generate multiple splash impacts before dissipating. Yeah, nice to see you, Simon. It's a pretty satisfying tool to upgrade. So I've given it sort of cluster blobs so it spreads further. And I'm guessing if I hit it in a corner it's gonna... Oh no. That's a bit disappointing. Why is that happening? Yeah, trying to clean the corners is a little bit... I think it struggles to know whether it hit the wall or the floor. But I think in this kind of context, like, hitting that edge should clean both sides. I think it'd just be a bit more generous with the amount of cleaning the gun does. I know we want it to be upgradable. But that feels like a... you know, if you think of how this is implemented, that feels like a ray-traced line to the wall, and then you clean the wall. And actually, that kind of ray tracing only makes sense when your gun is a laser beam or a single bullet. And this gun is not, it's an orb, right? It's like a grenade. So I think when that hits on the edges, we should see them getting cleaned on both surfaces. But that's really... like small detail, but I think it matters in a game like this, especially when it's a main mechanic. That sky out there is great. I love the just overall visual direction of this. Sort of, it's 90s in a couple of ways. It's like the PlayStation 1 aesthetic that a lot of people are going for with their low poly work at the moment, but it's also kind of just reminds me of really like chaotic 90s cartoons. Like a lot of the more weird acidy Nickelodeon stuff look like this. Bubbles don't go very far. We've got more color splash. We've got a whole tree of upgrades called color splash. I'm not sure what this means. Red splash enables obstacles vaulting on wall slides. Yellow splash gives a speed boost when stepped on. Green splash allows you to jump higher when stepped on. Cleaning surfaces grants bonus experience. Violet splash slows time and also anchor. Okay, let's try this. So are these going to be like paint colours that come out occasionally? Not sure. Is there nowhere else I can throw stuff to get rid of it? I have to go out that window. I feel like this is the sort of game that would often be sort of infuriating to watch someone else play, because like people have their own little quirks of how they manage a task like this, right? Like what their little strategy is for being efficient in any kind of game that involves like running around picking things up. And I imagine watching someone do this, who is doing it in a way that you wouldn't do it, would be quite painful for some people, I think. So I'm going to have probably some areas of this wall that I can't even reach with my projectiles until I've leveled them up, I think. Again, I think these corners are going to be a bit of a sticking point. I think that's like one thing to try and fix earlier is how the bubbles behave in corners, making it a bit more generous and make it feel a bit more three-dimensional and less like a... It feels like a sort of laser ray trace. I'm not sure if that's what it is or if it's just the point where the bubble impacts only is like treated as a single point in space rather than a, you know, rather than the bubble being a big collider that is able to hit multiple things at once. Don't know if the bin currency lets you buy anything. I've been leveling up. Oh yeah, the level is at the bottom. Okay, so the leveling up comes from that. I think the bin currency is just like the overall score, but... Well, it's not the overall score, is it? Because the cleaned bar at the top is very faint. I don't know if you can see that on stream. It says 1.5% cleaned. Probably not going to get... Probably not going to get to 100% this unless it works sort of like a clicker game and the upgrades that you get for the tools and stuff become very, very, like, powerful in a sort of exponential way. But I'm not really leveling up fast enough to feel a lot of that. So yeah, I don't think the bin does anything. I think it's just a sort of secondary score counter. So your score is kind of made up of a combination of how much poopy wall you've cleaned and how many of the objects you've gotten rid of. I will say, I think this is a very good use of like two mechanics. They fit together very well. They're variations on the same thing, but you get to do a different action. And it's definitely the sort of game where I think the game comes out of the player developing their little efficiency strategy, right? Even though it's not a super hard strategic thinky game, I think that's where the pleasure in doing this sort of thing comes from. It's like experimenting with ways of doing it, right? So when you're painting a wall or something and you work out little kind of games to play with yourself of how you section it off and stuff. But yeah, I would like to see the way the bubble reacts in corners improved a little bit, I think. We've got 3 points to spend. So the colour splash isn't actually a thing that appears. I don't know. I don't understand any of this mechanic yet. This some of the stuff in this menu. Okay, I've just made it so that cleaning the walls gives me my XP earlier. Because as boring as that kind of upgrade is, whenever there's an upgrade on a skill tree that is like, get your XP sooner, it feels like you kind of have to get that early if you're going to get it at all, because if you get it later, you've sort of wasted it for however many levels you leveled up. Oh. Okay. I think maybe I've been cheating for the first half of the game. You can just bubble blast the objects, but I was focusing on throwing them out the window because that was quicker. I don't know if I basically discovered the strategy that's supposed to be a hidden thing before the thing that the game wants you to do, which is shoot them with the gun. Which, personally, I think if you're shooting at the walls, then the objects should be, you know, a different mechanic. So the way I've been playing it, where I throw stuff out the window, I think combining the mechanics of shooting the walls with throwing the trash into things makes for a much more interesting game than treating this as a, you know, just a FPS with enemies that don't attack you, which is kind of what happens when you shoot the stuff to clean it, right? When you shoot the trash to get rid of it, you're just doing the same action onto different things, whether it's an object or a surface. I think that's not as interesting as being encouraged to pick things up and throw them into something. It also just doesn't make as much inherent sense that you can destroy a trash object with a detergent, you know? Which is what we're doing with when we do this. So I'm glad that the game gives me the option of just yeeting things out of the window, because I think that is a more entertaining game mechanic. I just want more windows to yeet things out of, or, you know, just use the principle of it's fun to sort of play basketball with these objects to score them. It doesn't have to be a window. It could be that we have a couple of big trash cans laid out in different parts of the level and you're throwing stuff into them, because I don't think going around and shooting a totally stationary enemy that can't do anything is fun. And it's not a matter of it being like a casual versus a hardcore game. I just don't think, you know, having the verb to shoot and using that for like 100% of your gameplay, I don't think that's going to be as interesting as having shoot and throw be core parts. And I suspect the way that I learnt to throw stuff out the window isn't the intended way of playing this game. But it's hard to tell. So Jopa's in the chat said, do you get more XP for shooting the objects than shooting the walls? I think that might be the case, because we got an upgrade. We got an XP upgrade for the walls. Yeah, the leveling up is very slow. Yeah, just getting rid of the trash by throwing it out the window is way more satisfying than shooting it. I think it's because you're kind of combining several mechanics at once. Like when I make that jump shot, it's like I'm having to do aiming, like clicking to shoot something in a particular direction and using the momentum of the jump, right? So that feels really fun. Even just doing that 10 times in a row is more enjoyable. Even though it's repetitive, it's more enjoyable than like standing in front of an object and shooting it when it can't fight back, because I don't really feel like I'm doing anything. It feels, again, it's funny that it has such a Robloxy interface, because they have so many games or experiences on Roblox that that are just like stand in front of something and click for ages, and they're just there as time sinks, you know. Fun fact, the reason why on Roblox they call games experiences and not games isn't like an artistic reason, but it's that like the various platforms, or maybe it was Apple, don't like there being a game that is a game store on their platform. So you have to avoid trying to put anything on Apple that is like a compendium of games that you can buy, and they're whole games, because then it's like you're trying to set up a mini app store within the app store kind of thing, and they don't like that. So that's one of the reasons why Roblox as a platform call their experiences and not games. What is this big green thing? Not that this is a Roblox game, this is a Godot game, but it's got some of the sensibilities of one, of just being like a massive, massive time drain. And like I said at the start, I haven't... oh, pizza down there. I haven't played things like Jet Wash Simulator. So I don't have that to compare this to. Oh, we've got a day and night cycle. That's nice. But I do find this enjoyable. I just think the most enjoyable part of it doesn't seem to be the intended way of doing things. And I think when your playtesters discover something like that, like that it's more fun to do things the wrong way in your game, you need to work out how to sort of move forward with that. Because I think sort of the way that treating this more like a basketball game, and then with shooting for some other aspect of it, you know, like shooting the walls and then basketballing the items, that just feels like a much richer set of things that uses the 3D environment better. Because in the sort of FPS version of this game, as soon as we're shooting something, we're no longer moving. Right? It's like I move around the thing, splashing it, but there's no real reason to, so... But I do think this is charming. I think I like it from a visual, like, style perspective. And I think just getting us to level up a lot quicker so that we can see, I don't feel like my efficiency at cleaning has gone up much with those levels. Like, you can see that, like, if you were to rewind now, you can see that I'm cleaning a much bigger area with each splash of my gun. But we've been playing for like 20 minutes or something, and I don't feel like the improvement in my tools has been significant enough in that time. I don't know if it's because I'm losing XP by throwing stuff out the window. I don't know. But yeah, I think I will want to feel this whole thing sped up a little bit in terms of the progression, and then... Ooh, where'd that glass go? And then just making more use of the throw mechanic, because it really is more fun than shooting everything. Kyusuke DX said it would be good to have a melee weapon as well. Yeah, I mean, we have a set of weapons here, right? So it's sort of implying we're going to get other tools. But I don't know if they're actually in this build. Let's go and have a look if we've got any options to like play a quicker mode. No, we've just got, I think we've got a single level. There aren't necessarily any cheat ways of quickly getting to have more stuff. It's very much you know, a game of pure progression, and if they let you cheat and get something earlier, then you're not gonna play the game for very long. So yeah, I would like to see some variation in the tools we get to use. I think a melee weapon makes a lot of sense, like having a what's it called, like a squeegee mop? Is it a squeegee mop? Like it's like a painting roller, right? But you wash things with it. Having one of those where you can like run up and whack these walls with it, I think would be, yeah. I think this bubble gun, if we could level it up nice and quickly in the first sort of 10 minutes to the point where it starts to feel like, you know, almost like a flamethrower, but for soap, so you can sort of the walls. It may be that this game gets to that point eventually with the upgrades, but they are so slow to acquire. And I think there are a lot of ways of fixing that. I think one of them is just making the XP requirements for each level lower, but there might be some more fun gameplay ways of doing stuff, like I don't know, I think one of the things that like these kind of lots of hidden objects type based games like Katamari often do is they have a classification for types of objects, and if you can do some stuff that works with that, you know, like maybe you get a couple of quests each level which will grant you way more XP than just doing the grind, and they might be like find 10 find and remove 10 cans, or find and remove like this amount of food objects or whatever, like a category, or maybe it's literally this object, just a bar with this and it says 8 of these, and when you get 8 of those, then you get like way more XP than you would have got for spending the same amount of time just like cleaning the walls and stuff. Because as soon as you start to go in that direction, then you have a couple of different competing priorities, and that gives the players little decisions to make, like moment to moment. Not very expensive to implement that kind of thing. You just have to look in the world, like count a type of object, or add it, when you add the quest, to say, oh, there's 10 of these beer bottles in the level now, go and collect 8 of those 10, anything where the player doesn't feel like they've only got one thing to do and has like 2 or 3 things to do, because then even if the player isn't making a great deal of choices about their gameplay, they are at least making moment-to-moment decisions about what to prioritize, and that can be enough in some cases. I think there are the bones here for something that's really enjoyable, and like I find just the interacting with this world quite pleasant, even though it's obviously quite gross. I need it to go a bit faster, and I think the things you can do to make this game more varied aren't super expensive to implement. Right, like having some sort of little quest system, some other way of getting XP more quickly that at the same time provides the player with a bit more of a feeling of choices they're making. And the other one would be having some objects in the environment that sort of, randomly every so often spawning some XP pickups in different places so that you have to parkour around a little bit. And then again, you're creating a moment-to-moment decision of like, do I stay here for 5 minutes and just clean as much of this surface as I can, or should I be looking around more and just sort of spreading myself out and like gradually cleaning everywhere? Because if I do it that way, then I'm not going to miss these coins or whatever they are that you put in the environment, right? I know that makes it a bit kind of goofy and cartoony and abstract, but I think having something that promotes like constantly having to move around and look around a little bit will solve a lot of other problems that this game is going to have. And yeah, I just want to get to a point much quicker where this gun starts to feel more like a power wash, feels like a sort of bubble flamethrower or something, rather than what it is now. But that's a fine starting point, but I think we should just get something more powerful a lot more quickly. So I'm going to jump out of this for a sec and just get some descriptions of some of the other games that are on the backlog and drop them into a poll, and let's see what people are interested in taking a look at next. Spawn germs that are moving targets. Yeah, that's not a bad idea, actually. Right. So I just need to mark on my spreadsheet that I've looked at that game. Let's see what else have we got. Right. Still learning how to... I'm going to put a couple of descriptions of games in the chat, and then we'll do a quick poll on what to take a look at next. So, Super Reactor is an arcade bullet hell with some original concept. Circular playfield, 2 hitboxes to manage, ability to collect cancel bullets. That's a very kind of abstract way of describing the game, but that sounds interesting. Clean Fall. We've got Clean Fall, which is another roguelite survival game about a robotic maid descending into a post-apocalyptic ecosystem. I've got a longer description of that, but I'll keep it short for the chat. Another game with clean in the title. So we've got Cleanfall, Super Reactor, and then let's have another similar one. We've got another roguelike bullet hell called Slime Attack Survivor. I put 3 games with similar premises, and I guess we're just gonna pick which one sounds the most appealing, I guess. And feel free to go entirely on vibes of the name, because that's valid. I think the name someone gives their game can tell you a lot about the sort of tone of it, and there we go. I'll leave that to run for a couple of minutes. So we'll let that run for a moment and just check out what people were saying in the chat about this game. Yeah, I do agree that we should have a melee weapon in this, and I think giving players 2 things to switch between early on would again just make it feel like there were more little moment-to-moment decisions, right? I'm not asking for this game to be made into some sort of super hardcore game with loads and loads of features in it. I think it just needs to unlock some of its features more quickly and make them feel a bit more powerful, so that, you know, it doesn't just feel like a game that is designed to be incredibly slow just to have enough content, you know, which is a reason for making a game slow, but it's not a very pleasant user-centric one. How are we doing in the poll? What's winning? Super Reactor and Slime Attack are head-to-head at the moment. Yeah, going on vibes is totally fine, Seamus. We've got to go on vibes sometimes. But they sounded reasonably similar. Bullet hell type things. I completely black out when I read roguelike in a description of a game now, because I think it has become meaningless. You know, it's like when people call a game an RPG because it has leveling up in it, and it's like, well, I don't know if that really constitutes that the player is playing a role in a world, you know. And likewise, I keep seeing roguelike just for anything that has procedural generation in it, and I don't feel like that is what the appeal of that genre is. Well, I've talked about this on the channel before, but I think there are a lot of people who are very used to having like conversations about genre and genre taxonomy about games as a sort of like intellectual exercise of categorizing things, right? Of saying like, oh, you know, what's the correct definition for a roguelike? What's the correct definition for an immersive sim? And I'm not as interested in doing that for its own sake. What I'm interested in is understanding what audiences like about a particular thing. And I think often when someone just says their game is a roguelike because it has a procedurally generated dungeon, it's like, okay, but what is that actually the element that makes roguelikes go for people? Because I don't think it is. I think you need the sense of making a build and the run being different in terms of the player's choices about their character or something like that as they go along. And I don't think that necessarily sits in line with like traditional definitions of what a roguelike is, but it's like, why do they appeal to people so much over the last couple of years? What parts of them are the things that appeal? And I don't think just having a random dungeon is the important part. Right, we're going to go with Slime Attack Survivor and see if I can survive a slime attack. Probably not. Right. I will install this as quickly as possible. I think it's going to be one of those... Oh, here we go. Here is the game. Dropping the store page link in the chat as well. And gonna shut down Clean Twin as much as I do enjoy the funky music, because we don't want two musics at once. Looks quite promising. I always feel like this very sort of marionette-y 2D animation feels a bit mobile game to me. It feels like I don't know, a very sort of commercially driven decision of animating things in a certain way so that you can make more characters or whatever, but what's going on? We've got it. This better have controller support. I hate to move a little dude around a screen without a controller. That's cute. Look at that. I moved my mouse around. Move my mouse around. It does a little cute little parallax. Play. We see big list of things. Weapons to start with. We've got Orion the Oathkeeper. He's a bow bro. And he's got a Luma. Like a turtle thing. And Axel has got a little eyeball bat. I mean, it looks like this has a lot of sort of categories of content to unlock in it. And one of the things I can already see, I don't know if these characters are like, over on the left we've got characters where we've got a few different states, right? We've got, here's a character that we have, that we can play as. Here's a character that we don't have and we don't know who it is. And then we've got characters where we don't know what they are ever, right? And that might just be because they've only made these 9. But I do like when games have a lot of unlocks of just having some so you can't see them ahead of time. Like having a good mix of like stuff where you can see it ahead of time and you can see it and want it, and then stuff where you just, it can surprise you. But yeah, this has got a very, very mobile game feel to the art. I totally agree. I think that the way that the individual characters are rendered is quite lovely. I think it's maybe to do with how bright and colourful everything is as well. I don't know. And we do have controller support, so that's nice. I've got a dash with space. Oh no. It's the you've fallen victim to one of the classic blunders. It's the thing that keeps happening when I get games where I think they support controllers, and then actually it's missing a button because we don't have that dash on the control. And it's basically where someone has used a prefab character controller in whatever engine they're working in, and it has partial controller support, but then when they add their own actions to the game, those don't have controller support. So you pick up the controller, start moving the character around, think that the game has controller support, and it doesn't. Let's go for speed. This is too much information straight away. I get that there is an audience for this kind of thing, and they see cute anime characters, RPG stuff, and they want loads of complexity. I get that there is an audience for that, but too much information to pass on my first level up, I reckon. So we level up a passive attribute and then we get access to these. So bonus experience, want that early. Don't need army yet. I'm upgrading that to that, and I get to add one of these things. Let's go with the lifesteal because I don't have anything for health yet. I think if you're making a game like this and you want there to be that level of complexity and you just want to hide it for a little bit, just give the player less options on their first couple of level ups or something. I don't know. Like, I kind of like that you choose a sort of passive upgrade and then you spend your coins on a weapon or a item, because that means that you're not constantly just making a choice between a weapon and a passive thing that's usually probably better anyway. Just gonna keep going for the damage stuff. I think this is going to be the sort of game that I'm going to have to play for a little while to get the feel of the specifics of this particular game. I like the varieties of slime we're seeing, but I think we're probably going to want some more shape variation as we get into the game. But these are cute enemies. Very Slime Rancher-esque, but more violent. And there's a pirate one over there, like a ghost pirate slime. He went away. Yeah, I'm probably going to be playing this one for a little while, so if you don't necessarily have any comments on the game, but you've got questions about stuff that I might be able to answer, then please ask away. We don't have to just chat about the game that I'm playing, so I don't know, if you want to tell people about something you're working on, or ask any questions you might have about game design, creative processes, stuff like that you think I might be able to answer, just yeah, I mean, that's what I'm here for. Remember, I'm not a programmer, so if you ask me how do I do so and so in Godot, I'm gonna be like, I don't know. I mean, I can do some stuff in various game engines, but not to the point where I can like recall it in a helpful way for other people, you know. I've got a quest to survive a wave with less than 40 health, but I'm not really getting to a point where I've lost enough health to be able to do that, and I don't want to do it on purpose. I don't know why I've been moving the mouse around as if I'm aiming, because I'm not. I'm not doing anything with it. It's because I have to use it in between rounds, I guess. I'm not going to get the dash one because I've been completely forgetting to use dash. Thunder Halo. I mean, I'm going to get that just based on how cool the name is. Yeah, I want a Thunder Halo. Do I care what it does? No. I can't buy it. Why can't I buy it? Oh, I think I have to get rid of one of these. I mean, this does have a dash. But yeah, I don't... Seamus said, do you need it in games like this? I think it can feel good, right? Like, a Diablo isn't miles away from being a bullet heaven style game, really. And you've been able to roll in Diablo since Diablo 3, and it does add a lot. But, yeah, it's like... They're not getting me very often anyway. So having that extra tool of being able to like dash for mobility and get out of a dangerous situation, it kind of makes me feel a little bit overpowered. Try bullet. Right, so we're going to sell some of these cheaper spells and get Determined Ranger. I'm having a bit of trouble sort of knowing which category of thing the things in this shop go into. Because some of them are like passives that you get from your equipment, some of them are spells. It's not super clear which is which. But yeah, you've got spell slots that seem to determine what your projectiles are, and you've got 3 of those and your weapon, and you can sell the spells and replace them with other things, which means you can sort of like change your build rather than always having your build kind of predetermined, not predetermined, but like overly determined by what you selected earlier in the game, because you can sell it and get rid of it and change direction with the build, which I think is maybe a nice touch. It might make some of the decisions feel less meaningful though. Because that is one of the things about Vampire Survivors, is that you get this state quite often where you're trying to not pick up a new weapon because you want to save the slot for some particular other thing that you're trying to get. But that is the kind of strategic thing that you're not going to get a feel for the first time you play a game. So something like being able to sell your spells and buy other ones and change your build halfway through, which is a feature that this game has, it's very difficult to just play it for like less than an hour and work out how those design choices contribute to like the long-term strategy aspect of the game and how it feels, you know. We've got an Epic Astral Orb. That's a good name for a band. Epic Astral Orb. I'm gonna go for that. HKC said, "It bugs me more than it should that the upgrade panels have a different corner radius than their shadows." I'm going to have a look at that next time we get to the upgrade menu. You know, I think I think pedantry about small details in UI. I think that's quite welcome here. I think you're in a. This is a safe space to be triggered by the corners of shadow in a UI. You know, these are the sorts of things that should keep you up at night. Perfectly reasonable. Let me see. See, these ones don't have shadows at all. Let's make. But these ones do. Oh yeah, I see what you mean. They've got a different curve at the corner. But yeah, that is something that 99% of people aren't going to notice. But... let's upgrade the blood bow. I think one of the things I'm struggling a little bit with is that the most common slime type is the same color as the coins. And I don't know if people saw my video about Bullet Heavens before, and I talked a fair bit about the function of the XP gems in Vampire Survivors, like what they actually achieve in terms of the design. And they sort of create this heat map where you can look at the level and you see all the potential rewards littered around and you kind of walk towards them. But we've got an issue here where we've got a really common slime colour and it's the same colour as the coins. And you could say, oh, that creates an interesting thing of trying to tell things apart, but I don't know. I think you want a really quick... I think you want to look at the screen and almost be able to squint and still see where the risk and the reward is on that level, right? I think the red danger areas might be too pronounced as well, but the colour similarity between the coins and the sort of orange jellies is just too close. I think that's a problem. Close enough for it to be a problem. Let's skip a level and save some money because the upgrades are starting to get really expensive now. Whenever you dash, you gain a boost of 10% damage reduction for 2 seconds. I'll sell my worst spell and replace it. Maybe get another armor. At the top we've got a count of coins, we've got a count of pirates. I saw one of those earlier and I didn't kill it in time. I think the level finished and I didn't get the wave finished, I didn't get a chance to get it. But I don't know what the pirates are yet. I'm also not totally sure what this orange section in the middle is. I think it is maybe on my side. I think it's something that helps me. But I can't really tell. I think it's supposed to be related to the blue crystal in the middle, but not super obvious. And I don't know if you can notice them, but there are these like ground power-ups that are things like a short sprint. And again, they're the same color as the coins, which kind of makes it hard to see them and go for them. Like these healing power-ups are green, right? But then when we see a sprint, it's yellow and it just looks like a deformed coin. There's one. Challenge, don't be in the zone for 46 seconds. Okay. Oh yeah, I've not been paying attention to that challenge panel over there. Okay, I can do that. So that restricted zone is just a way of adding those challenges, I guess. Doesn't do anything else. Yeah, I guess, okay, so now that I'm paying attention to the challenges, I can see how they could vary the gameplay quite a bit. Very difficult to stay in the center, because it just makes you really vulnerable. Oof. Right, I'm going to try one more time with this one, because it's hard to get a feel for one of these if you only play it once. We've got a Necromancer. We've got an Oathkeeper, don't know what that is. Strategist. Silent Ninja. They've all got a bow. Oh no, you can... We've got some different stuff here now. Summon zombies that roam around aimlessly dealing damage on contact with enemies. Crimson Battle Axe. I love that we've already got some cool stuff. Damages and pushes nearby enemies away. We're going to go with the Necromancer. And the Tombcaller Staff, because... it just looks like what he's supposed to have, I guess. And you get a dragon appear at certain waves. And that's how you set the difficulty of the whole game. Maybe. I don't know. Low Wales said, how to make RNG for this game more fun, like make the player, if the player lasts a long time, the higher power shows more often, and if there are any new ways to... Okay, so basically saying that you would maybe reward the player doing certain things like completing the quests by making the shop give you better stuff. Yeah, I think that could be an interesting incentive. Or even just like, yeah, if you have a shop with 3 slots and if you satisfy a particular condition, then it goes up to 4 slots, you get more options. That can be a good way of rewarding people without adding loads of work for yourself. Damage. My little zombies that start off small. It's funny. Yeah, people saying about the kind of mobile art on Steam. I think this will do okay on Steam, but it does... It looks much more like a very polished mobile game. And I do wonder if they're intending on developing it as one of those at the same time. I mean, I've also now got a character build that feels different from the first time, and I feel like that is a crucial thing with these games. If getting a different set of power-ups doesn't feel any different in terms of like how you move around and stuff, then I don't think it's doing what games in this genre need to do. We've already got a Like, because I've got that kind of nearby blue slash thing, this character is already feeling quite different from the last one that I played with. Because the last one where I was using a bow, it was very based on building speed and trying to stay out of the crowd. Whereas when you're using these kind of closer melee stuff, it's about staying on the edge of the crowd and trying to, you know, push the edge. If that makes sense. Okay, so when the blue crystal gets a blue thing, that's giving us the challenge to stay in here, which I think is going to be a lot easier to do with this character, because we've built for close quarters. Yeah, I did it that time. I'm going to build Void and Arcane Slash together because they're both dependent on having stuff close to you. Yeah, I didn't see what the challenge rewarded us with either. I need to kind of keep an eye out for when the next one happens. I don't know if it just gave us XP. It definitely wasn't clear what we were getting for that. But hopefully they will stay relatively easy with this character, because it feels a lot easier than the last time I played. Here we go, right. We've got the same challenge again. Let's try and see if we can see what we actually get from it. Yeah, the challenge is a really nice way of just making sure you can't always just go anywhere, right? It's but it also doesn't like hurt you if you don't do it. It's just you kind of choose to do it or not do it depending on how strong you are and how able you are to take on the risk of. Although I would say the orange challenge where we're walking around the edge doesn't feel like it makes the game harder, because that's actually safer anyway. Riz. We're gonna level up our Riz. So this challenge feels like with most builds it's going to make the game harder than the orange one, because the orange one is just encouraging you to do what's safe anyway. Yeah, I couldn't really tell what the challenge complete was giving me then. I think it might just be giving me XP, but it's not really that clear from the from anything in the interface what is actually the reward. So yeah, there's a lot of different sort of categories of upgrades. You've got your equipment you wear, you've got your weapon, you've got 3 different spells, and then you've also got traits. And I think when you're picking those, the interface for what type of thing they are, it could be a little bit clearer as to like which category they fall into. And it's kind of like if you look at Hearthstone cards, like a card for a minion and a card for a spell, they have a different layout in terms of the way like the picture is shown, the way that the different text is organized, and that allows you to very quickly learn the categories. But because we have things that are the same, well, this isn't an example of it. This is an example of it, right? We've got passive, arm, leg, and the way this whole card is laid out is as if it's the same sort of thing. And that makes it hard for me as a player, or anyone as a player, to build up a sense of which of these items go over here on the right in the item set, which go down to passives, and which are spells and so on. Because these purchase cards just look kind of like they're all the same category, because all the information is laid out in the same way. Yeah, the ramp up of how much damage I was taking got very fast then. Lowell said the slime shots are so small you can't even see them before they hit you. Yeah. Right. It's definitely got, you know, I want to play one more time kind of vibes to it. Oh look, it's the God of War. Give him a crimson battle axe. Or a big hammer. They do the same thing. They are both the same. They're a two-handed heavy weapon, which means you slam the ground, damaging enemies around you. We're going to go with the hammer because I think that's going to give us like amusing, what's it called? Smash Brothers hammer vibes, right? When you get the hammer and you just run along with it. I am budget Kratos. But we've got Kratos at home. The Kratos at home. Magni said, where do I work professionally? So I have I'm a nomad at the moment, really. So I have 2 games that I'm working on as a freelance designer. And one of those I was referred to someone I used to work with at my last job. Because my last job was at a sort of, you know, I was on a contract, but it was my full-time job. You know, I didn't do anything else apart from YouTube. And there was an EduGames contract that came up just as I was leaving there. And someone sort of recommended me for that. So I'm doing that, and I probably spend about 10 to 12 hours a week on that, maybe less. Got a couple of calls, writing some documents, reviewing builds. It's kind of, it's an educational game, but I would say it's kind of a commercial sort of project, really, where, you know, it's not the sort of thing I'm doing because I think it's cool. I'm doing it because it's a job, and it's a fine job, and it's a good team, and I've had a good time working with everyone on that team. And then, yeah, there's another project where I'm working on a visual novel with another commercial team. So that is like, there's the director of the company, there's a creative director, and there's a writer. I have some artists. And that is mostly just dropping into Discord and then reviewing documents as they come through, making proposals for things like how the UI of that game works and how some of the choices in the game should be modelled. But it does pay the bills at the moment. The freelance work is enough, and I would definitely like for YouTube and my Patreon to be enough to not have to. I think you know, out of the freelance work I'm doing, I would probably like to halve it and only focus on the projects that are cool, because that's how any freelancer often feels about this stuff. You know, you're doing it because you enjoy making a certain type of thing, and maybe you want to make less things and only make the things that are cool. I think that's all anyone wants in that sort of situation, really. But yeah, one of the reasons why on the YouTube channel I've been doing a lot more sort of stream stuff and just reaction stuff that's kind of quick and easier to make is because when I started I was doing a lot of green screen stuff and like zanier things. And I would like to do that more, but it's just so time consuming at home to sort of set lights and screens and stuff up. So the dream over the next few months is to move into a studio for all of the content creation stuff. Magni says, you don't sound like you recommend this as a career choice. It's really hard to say. I don't know. I'm just quite emotionally flat. So like I try not to treat it as like something that I'm ungrateful about. You know, it's a good thing to have the opportunity to do. For sure, but I just try and be neutral about stuff, you know, and I think if you're doing something for a while and you don't hate it, then it's fine, carry on doing that thing. I definitely didn't like working in studios where the product was a massive thing, where, yeah, I've worked in places where there is a game with a team of about, you know, 200 people, and people are working on different parts of it, and maybe they don't communicate very well, or maybe they do, but it's just so slow, and like you can't do anything that feels significant on the project because it's so slow. And at least with freelance jobs, you're usually either in there from the start helping people to define what the game is, which is interesting and exciting and stuff like that, or you're coming into a game that's already built and sort of proposing how to improve it and stuff, but you have a lot of chance to make a big impact on that project. And if you're on a team where, you know, there are 20 different designers for different areas of the game, then that can be very frustrating because people don't align what they're doing, they don't think holistically about the whole thing. And there's just all sorts of reasons why that's a frustrating sort of place to work. So I guess I would say I've been jumping between lots of different types of jobs. I've done education, I've done very corporate game dev, and I think there are always things that you like more or less about doing different types of work, you know. It can be just the case that the thing that is more interesting just doesn't pay as well. That's often the case as well, isn't it? Smug, if I wouldn't know how to operate a VTuber account, but if we can get some cartoons of me, then I would totally be up for it. I guess I just have some like macros on my keyboard that make the character appear in a particular pose and then disappear again. I don't know. The main issue with freelance, I mean, when I say freelance, I'm talking about freelance game design, so, you know, that stuff, So with the freelance game design, I mean, the issue for me really is that it doesn't align with what I'm doing on YouTube, right? So if you've got a developer who is making their own game, then they can make YouTube content out of their own game, right? That's what Bite Me Games does. It's what Code Monkey does. They can make loads of content out of the game they're working on. Whereas I can't do that, right? Because it's an NDA project. I don't own the project. So I can't like give real examples of a thing we're working on and say, oh, here's what I learned about this from doing this. I can do that with a game I was on years ago, but I can't do it with like a current project which is NDA'd. So it doesn't fit very well with the content creation. That said, I do have a project coming up that might involve having to try and make a really good Metroidvania with the team, and that means that maybe we can get some content creation out of the research process for that, right? So I might not make a bunch of content that's going, here's our Metroidvania, here's what we're working on, but I definitely could do a lot of like genre analysis and turn that into YouTube content and kill two birds with one stone, right? Because that's an example where we've got a genre that lots of people work in, lots of people want to make a good one, and I'm going to have to really think hard about how to make a good one for that project. And even if I can't talk about that project on YouTube very much, I can at least turn some of the research for that project into YouTube content, you know? Yeah, I mean, in the case of one of the games I'm talking about, I don't even know if you know, I don't know how kind of secretive we have to be about that one. And yeah, you're definitely right that there are some situations where it could generate some hype for it. But I think you can also sort of shoot yourself in the foot a little bit if you have a channel that is primarily educational, and then if you put something out and people who normally watch your educational content think that thing is bad, then it might sour them on your advice, right? Might make them think, well, this person doesn't know how to do game design because they made bad choices on that project. And naturally, that's kind of not really how it works, because design is iterative and you often just don't get things right the first time. But we'll see. It might that might be the sort of project where eventually some members of the team do want to talk about it on the channel and stuff. But I personally wouldn't go into detail about client work where well, obviously I'm not going to do it when I've been asked not to, when it's a contractual thing, obviously. But unless I could do it in like a conversational way of like introducing members of the team to talk about things, then I probably wouldn't be super interested in going into too much detail on something like that, even if I could. Because if your channel then just becomes about this game that you're working on for 6 months, then I would probably need to make a separate channel that was just about that game. Because you don't expect to click on a channel with a name like Indie Game Clinic and just hear about someone talking about the same game for like 50% of their content for months, right? Which is what can happen if your general design or development channel becomes about a specific game that you're making. Magni said, what do you think about the increasing amount of games published on Steam? I can't remember who made the video, right? There was a video about 6 months ago, maybe a year ago, where it was like, someone was saying stuff like, stop complaining about how marketing is so hard, your marketing isn't the problem, right? And it was basically calling people out on, you know, blaming their own lack of marketing for their game not doing well, when actually their game just isn't up to the standard in their genre or whatever. And I think a lot of that thinking applies when people bring up numbers about like how many games are being released and like the competition, how much competition there is. I understand that there's only so much attention people can give to something, but if you're always if you're always aiming to be the best thing in your category rather than to fight with like the bottom 75%, then I don't think a few dozen extra games existing is necessarily that much of a problem. I don't know. I think thinking about things in terms of competition is often a bit of a cope. And if your game has enough standout elements or just executes really well on a genre, then I don't think the amount of games in the market should really be a problem for it, you know? I think often when people talk about the market, they're doing this sort of like fantasy football league thing of, I don't know, of like trying to predict things and chase trends and stuff. And I ultimately think that if you make a game that is just the best use of your skills and also your taste and the things you care about, then that is the only way to make a good game, really. So sort of like trying to watch what other people are doing or thinking, oh, I should make a game in this genre because they're popular right now, or I should avoid making a game in this genre right now because it's saturated and there's too much competition. I think this kind of like market-driven way of thinking about games just is a failure to understand that what makes a game good is like a sort of a product of what skills and tastes the people making it have, right? And you know, people say about Hades, right? You know, Supergiant made a bunch of games before Hades, and Hades is an expression of like everything that team has learned how to do, right? And you can see that trajectory if you see a studio that's been around a lot and made different types of games. They're sort of trying different stuff out and then just always coming back to it with the same set of skills that they're good at, right? Like Supergiant make 2D action games, Inkle make very high quality but small and concentrated narrative type experiences. And I think the kind of focus on the market or understanding the market or trying to predict the market or any of that kind of stuff is like something people do when they sort of just don't understand how good things get made, which is just you make the thing that you are capable of making, and if it's good enough to like be better than some other stuff in the genre, then great. But often, you know, if you're someone that's played shoot 'em ups your entire life, you're going to be better at making shoot 'em ups than you're going to be at making visual novels. So you should make shoot 'em ups, right? That should be the determining thing over what you decide to do, not, oh, there's 50 shoot 'em ups, so I won't bother making one because there's too much competition, you know? I just think it's a bit of a dead-end way of thinking about how to make things or what to make. It's like, you know, if you'd learned to play drums for 20 years, you've got the skill to play drums, so you can become a different type of musician. You can learn piano as well or something, but you're probably still going to be better at drums, and that should determine like what you focus on to some degree. I don't know. Yeah. Seamus is calling out all indie devs for having ugly games. Saying, look, you need to start making some less ugly looking games. Yeah, I'm not a great artist, but I have enough taste to be able to tell when my art is not good and to think, well, maybe someone else should do this. Like, I don't know. I have a RPG Maker project that I occasionally post about in our Discord that's like got these weird superheroes, and I think I've done an okay job of the pixel art for them, but I know that if that project went on further, and people liked it, I would probably want to get a comic book artist to do the character portraits and the hero image for it and stuff. So I think there is a middle ground between like trying to do everything yourself to the best of your ability, and also recognizing that some of the things, even the best of your ability, is not as high quality as what people want, you know. And I think you should never like write off the idea of hiring someone to do something else for you for a little bit if you need to. And people are always like, I have no money, I am an indie developer. And I promise, if you put like 5% of your earnings away every week, then within a month or two, you will be able to afford to have someone do something for you for the benefit of your project, whatever that is. And it, you know, the less you can spend on hiring people to help you with stuff, then the more targeted you need to be with what that is, right? So if you can save up a decent amount, it might be getting someone to redo every character portrait in your game, or some type of art asset where it's easy to outsource it and separate from the rest of your game. But if you can't afford that much, it might be like just getting someone to do your capsule art on Steam, so that, you know, it has the best chance of grabbing people's attention. It's kind of like with YouTube. If you're trying to scale up a YouTube channel, you hit a point where it's like, okay, I'm gonna need to hire someone to do some thumbnails or edit some video or whatever, and it's not all or nothing, right? It might be that I have a budget to pay someone for like 1 day a month to help me out with that stuff. So then I think, okay, what's a content pipeline that allows me to carry on working the way that I've been working, and then bring someone in just for a small amount regularly, so that I can kind of, you know, outsource a bit of the work. And you can do that with art in games. You can sort of approach it by just getting people to replace little bits of it at a time, like the ship of Theseus, but games. The game of Theseus. Nidhogg is not pretty, but it has character. Yeah, that's a good example of a game where it's like, yeah, there are definitely different types of ugly that a game can be, right? And one of the types of ugly is like, all of the art assets are fine, but like the overall style is not right. And I think what I'm playing at the moment is a little bit of that. We talked about it looks like a mobile game. It doesn't give kind of indie game vibes. It feels like a very polished mobile game that is... which is totally unfair on it, right? Because this is a premium PC game that you can buy and presumably unlocks all of the content in one go. But there is something about the aesthetic that screams mobile casual game. And that's not necessarily ugly, but it is like a disjunct between the style and the form of the thing. And then you get like indie games like Nidhogg, like Shameless. That's a really good example of a game where it's like ugly in a particular way. I guess this kind of feels a bit punk, doesn't it? It's like, it's ugly in a like, yeah, this is how my game looks, deal with it kind of way, rather than like, oh, it's tried to be good in a particular way and failed or whatever. It's dragon time, right? I think this is the last attempt with this game, but I'm glad we at least got to a dragon. I would say one of the areas where this is struggling for me, in terms of like comparing this to other stuff in the genre, is because all of the enemies are slimes and they're different variations on the same cute slime. I've played 3 rounds of this so far, and I haven't really got to a point where I can see a slime and understand its properties based on looking at it. And again, if we go back to Vampire Survivors, it's like every enemy in it has some kind of extreme... this is a fast but weak enemy, this is a slow but strong enemy, all of that kind of stuff. All of the slimes here, they just read to me as cute slimes, and I can't look at them and go, oh, that one is going to be a glass cannon, or that one is going to be a tank, you know, because they're so visually similar. and the variations in them seem to be there to more provide like cute factor of like, oh, that one looks like a pirate, that one looks like a blah blah blah, but they're not helping me as a player to like see the design of the character and go, oh, that one's a tough one, that one's a fast one, you know. So I think that can be one of the issues with when you try and do this thing of all of the enemies are variations on the same thing. You lose a lot of the stuff you can do with like shape language to communicate how the character is going to behave. Of like, yeah, Dutch said the mimetic of slime is low level, right? Yeah, exactly. So in a JRPG, slimes are just like the bog standard throwaway enemies. So having a game where everything is slimes all the way up to the highest level, I think it can work, but we're going to need like a slime that is a cube. And some just slimes that read as having a different silhouette so that you know what to do with them in your head, right? If a slime has spikes coming out of it, that changes the silhouette and it communicates something to the player. But a lot of the variations that we get in the enemies here aren't really communicating anything. They are sort of... They seem to be more for the sake of flavour or like surprise at seeing a new thing. And that's fine, but I would like to be able to read the game state better. And at the moment, I see orange slimes, I know they're easy. I see the other slimes, I know they're going to be harder. But I can't tell the difference at any kind of higher level than that. Like you know, of being able to look at the more advanced slimes and tell them apart, or base my actions on any understanding of how they're different from each other, you know. But I kind of like this. I'm sort of middling on it. It feels like a weird mix of creative choices. Yeah, I think in Slime Rancher, it's sort of... You can get away with them being all quite similar because you are down on the ground with them, you're looking at them, and it's sort of your whole job is to understand the difference between them and stuff like that. There's so much focus on it. Whereas here, it's like the difference between the slimes is a background piece of information that would help you play the game better if you understood it, but you're not going to get that information in this kind of case. Yeah, Nightbat said the colours on the field could sort of interact with the slimes, and then you're kind of changing the colours of the slimes with all the reds around them and the different highlights and stuff. It makes it hard to read the kind of legibility of what's going on. Laurel said, words of gold, make a game that is just best use of your skills and also your taste and things you care about, and the only way to make a good game. Please make a video about it, please. I will make a video about that to some degree. I mean, I might just clip clip the bit out of this VOD, but... Puppet said, you're considering commissioning 3D models, but super hesitant stuff is working out without another person right now. Yeah, I always think that getting some kind of experience collaborating, whether it's actually working with someone on a project you both care about or hiring someone, is a good experience to have in its own right. But I think you should do as much as you can on your own, right? Because you learn so much doing that. Even if if you're doing your own art, but you have no intention of being an artist, you're still going to learn and have fun doing that. I think it's once you get to the point where you've done loads and then you look at your game and you're like, wow, this looks like crap, right? And then you can start to maybe think about, oh, how could I piecemeal rebuild this game with new assets or something like that. And often, I don't know, like I spoke earlier about maybe being involved in a Metroidvania project or some sort of action game coming up. Part of that job will be assessing the needs of the game in terms of the art pipeline. So if you're bringing in an animator, for example, whether it's a 3D animator or a 2D animator, and you're going to have them making like moving art assets for your game, you sort of want to have worked out quite a lot about how things move in the game and the scale of those things and stuff before you get them working on it anyway. Because like if you think of something like line widths in 2D art, or line thicknesses, like how zoomed in the camera is and what details you need to see, and all of these kind of things are all going to be really important. So you sort of need to prototype in a way that helps you understand what the art needs of the game are before you take it to an artist and say, right, can you make this, this, and this? So you can kind of apply that to your own projects, right? Of even if you're making the art yourself and the art is shockingly bad, you know, you can either go down the route of making a game like Nidhogg where it's got this punk attitude to the art where it's like, yeah, the art is bad, so what? Or you can just treat it as like, I'm making programmer art so that I've got something in place, and I'll do this, like, you know, basic visual communication stuff of like, how do I communicate what in the game is dangerous? You know, what are the relative sizes of things? What in the game is like a reward or something I want people to know that they should pick up? All of that kind of stuff. Even if your programmer art is terrible, you should still be doing that kind of stuff as the project lead to work it out. And then later on, if you do get the opportunity to work with an artist, you can give them a decent brief, because you can like take this big palette of stuff you've made and you've got all of the technical specification of how big things are. You've got all of the kind of understanding of what your game needs to visually communicate in terms of what's important or what it's supposed to be hidden. Like if you've got secrets in your game, like how subtle do you make certain things? All of that visual direction stuff. Even if you end up in the luxury position of having an artist to work with, which is a fantastic place to be in, you still need to think through these things yourself, and the best way to think them through is doing them often. So, you know, you only learn to be an art director by doing some art, even if you know, end up directing someone else doing it. I'm going to stay on for like 10 more minutes and answer some questions, and then I need to go and cook some food. It's this stuff that you put in your body and it makes it work. I'm just going back in the chat a little bit to see where we're at. How do Uthon said, how do I find the Discord link? I'm a Patreon supporter. You should have got one on Patreon, but email me if you struggle. Just quote your screen name and I'll send you a new thing, or I'll look up on Patreon what the issue is. But yeah, when you get a Patreon subscription, it should just give you the role automatically. I'm just going to show Nidhogg for anyone who hasn't seen it. So this was like kind of jousting, isn't it? I haven't played. I think I played it ages and ages and ages ago when it came out. Fighting game where the fighting is kind of optional. Let's see the PS4 trailer. I love the way the grass moves in that scene is fantastic. That's what happens. You get eaten by the Nidhogg if you win. Hi, Ibby. Ibby said hello and then retracted their message. What's going on? Yeah, Daedalus is quite a well-known electronic music composer. Who is it published by? Is this a Devolver game? One of the things you start to notice as well, if you really pay attention to like who the publishers are of different indie games, is like the different publishing houses have kind of styles that they go for, and Devolver is the one that likes this noisy, punky aesthetic, right? As if you go to like, I don't know, Annapurna Interactive was often putting out a lot of games that felt a bit more artsy in a more traditional way, and a bit more like not necessarily soft, but a bit more like highbrow kind of artsy, whereas Devolver has always been like noisy, messy games, the kind of same sort of vibe as like Adult Swim and all that kind of like acid adult TV type stuff. Did we get, does anyone else know about that Nidhogg, I can't even pronounce it, Nidhogg Halloween map? I don't know. Yeah, Broforce is such a funny game. So goofy. I particularly like the feature in Broforce where you come back as a different character for each life, because it makes the game harder. It's like a fun bit of novelty, but changing character every time you die is a really good way to like make your game harder than it needs to be, because the player has to remember what the buttons do. And one of the funny things in Broforce is it doesn't really remind you very well how to operate the different characters' weapons when you cycle between them, and that would normally be a bad thing, but because Broforce is based so much around slapstick humor, it works really well. Like, I really like Broforce. I think it's a very funny game. My kids like it as well. It's just such a good game you could like drop into, and I think if you have an action game and you can make it so that the failures feel like slapstick humor, I think that is a very strong approach to action games, right? It's kind of what makes Super Meat Boy work as well. It's like the thing on Super Meat Boy where you see all your failures at the end of the level. It's just so slapstick in this really horrible, gory way. What is that face on Chrome on the taskbar? That's my musical alter ego down there. That's just my other face when I'm doing music things and I wear a different pair of glasses. Feel good bad thing, yeah, that's a good way of putting it, right? Of like, yeah, games that sort of relish the player character's death. I think I've got a soft spot for that. I think that's a really fun way to make failure fun. It's just like having player deaths that almost feel like a reward or like a booby prize in their own right is great. I also love that Broforce has like 4 characters that are all Arnold Schwarzenegger. And I think they did the same thing with, I think there's more than one Bronson character as well. Or no, more than one Chuck Norris character. Right, I am going to log off for the day. Thank you for popping in, and thank you for all your questions and sort of insights on the games as well. I will try to be more structured with my streams, but like I said, today was just making sure that the internet worked. And I don't think we've had any drops, which is great. So see you all soon, and have a good rest of the weekend. thank you all for coming.